We are live. Let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. We have Clough. How's it going today?
It's good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. We're in the weird fake spring is what they call it right now, because it's like 70 some odd degrees out right now, and it's not even February yet. So
yeah. That's what Nashville is. I'm hoping it's here to stay, though, but I saw on the weather it's not. It's going away. And I like summer, so I am ready for winter to go bye-bye.
Fair. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's not going anywhere, so.
Yeah. Hopefully soon, though. We only have a few more weeks, and then I think it's spring.
Right. Well, that's what's scaring me a little bit is I'm supposed to be coming out to Nashville for CRS here in a couple weeks. And when I went out last year, it was at the end of February. And I was like, okay, I'm cool with that because by then everything kind of chills out. But now it's in like mid-February and I'm a little nervous about that because it's like, that's when like the snow hits and I'm not looking forward to that one. So
yeah, I mean, it's been we had a really mild winter. So we had like a cold snap and now it's like warming up. It's going to chill back down, but I don't feel like it's going to be I don't feel like February is going to be bad with snow. We kind of already had our one snowstorm, so I'm like, it's done.
Fair. Yeah. I love that we're the ones worried about the snow, you being from the East Coast and then me being from Chicago. And it's like,
I'm not worried about the snow. I'm worried about other people on the road. Like,
yes.
I can drive. I'm like, I have four-wheel drive. I know how to drive. It's the other people on the road that scare me because they don't know what they're doing. They're slipping and sliding. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've driven in 1.5 feet of snow. I can do it.
Right. Fair. I went home up to Chicago over Christmas and it wasn't bad. It was just icy. It was a lot of ice.
Yeah.
And it was my dad's surprise 70th birthday party. So he had been drinking. And so it was up to me to drive us home. And it's like, you realize I haven't really driven in this weather in about 15 years. Right. So I'm a little I'm okay, but I'm like a little nervous because I ain't really drove in this stuff in a while. And it was just like, okay, boom, got home. Everybody's like, how'd you get home so quick? I was like, I know how to drive in this stuff. Like, I'm nervous. Yeah, I don't enjoy driving in it, but it's not hard. So,
yeah, same. I'm like, I can drive. I mean, I grew up in Maine. So, I mean, we had snow, deep, heavy snow, couple feet, ice on the road. And I mean, like, you don't thaw out up there until April. Yep. So I'm like, it doesn't bother me to drive in it. But no salt on the road, nothing on the road, and then people driving on the road bothers me. I'm like, that is just a setup for an accident and some catastrophe in the street.
Yeah, 100% agreed. 100% agreed. Yeah. So how long have you been in Nashville? So
I have been here 2.5 years now. So that's crazy to think. That is crazy to think. But I've been here about 2.5 years. I moved down, I think it was 23. So, yeah. Nice.
And was it always kind of the goal to get down to Nashville, or what prompted the move?
So I had done a lot in New York City. Like I said, I'm originally from Maine. I played in Portland, Maine. I did Boston. I was playing a lot in Boston. And then I was also doing a lot of stuff in New York City. So I kind of did that region of the country a lot. And I had thought about moving to New York City for a while. And that was actually my ultimate move at that time. And then COVID hit. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, if something like this happens again, I wouldn't be able to do that. And also New York was my number one because it was so close to where I lived. It wasn't as far as like Tennessee and whatever. But I ended up going to Tennessee because I knew more people down here. And he was my manager, technically one of my artist coach guys lived down here. And so he kind of prompted the move. My all-time goal is, because I do pop music, is to be in LA. And so I'm kind of working that way. Nashville's a cool town. It's just not my vibe as much. So it's a good like test ground. Like I've already done the New England, New York region. I did a lot of stuff in Florida. So I kind of did the East Coast pretty well. Now I'm like in the middle and then working my way west.
Fair, fair, fair. It's just one of those things where, like, just trying to figure out where works for you. Like, I mean, I think Austin might be a good shot, like, so a place to stop over because Austin's got a lot of cool things going on, especially if you like to perform live. But like pop music, I guess LA is kind of the place for that one right now, just kind of
Yeah.
in general. So,
Yeah, I work a lot of my producers, like I live in Nashville, but I'm constantly working with people out of LA.
hmm
I rarely write, which is awful to say, but I rarely write with Nashville people. I'm
hmm
often with LA just because it's the sound I'm going for.
hmm
It's a different type of art of music out there. And so that's like really what I'm focusing on. And after I
hmm
got here, it solidified of like, okay, I'm in Nashville to learn how to be a better artist, how to be a better songwriter. Like Nashville to me is the place if you want to be a really great songwriter, spend some time
hmm
here. If you want to
Right.
be great at your craft, spend some time in Nashville
Oh
and
yeah.
move on from it. But you also have to figure out where you want to move on to.
hmm
Um,
100%.
yeah,
It's one of those things where I think every creative kind of struggles with that in general.
yeah.
Like I've gone back and forth. I was out in New Mexico for 4 years after I left Chicago, and I thought that was going to be my forever home. And then I realized, like, oh, there's just not the infrastructure out here to support anything like this.
It's
And yeah.
the learning experience. I mean, I love New York City. I spent a lot of time there. It taught me a lot of things about myself, a lot of things about what I do. Met a lot of great people. Um, and then also, like being in New England, you kind of learn, okay, what you like, what you don't like, where you're going, and where you want to be. But then you have to like take a dive into like a culture, a music culture. And I feel like Nashville is the place where you really have to spend a little time to realize who you are.
hmm
And more than anything, I find people that spend time in Nashville, even when you look at the pop acts, like the Ryan Tedders, the Ed Sheerans, the Max Martins, like all those people have spent some time in Nashville learning
hmm
how to be the great people that they are today. It's because they learned the backstory of how to do it. So I always say, like, that's kind of, I guess, what I've learned the most here. And kind of it drew me here more was because I knew more people here for one, and then realizing like, what do I want to be more than anything? And that's like, you have to put your time in and be the best
hmm
artist you can be and understand yourself because you don't want to get down the road and realize, oh, I'm not being authentic.
hmm
Authenticity more than anything.
Oh yeah, for sure. And do you think that's kind of what launched like the poptism thing that I saw on your Instagram page was
So
just kind of
Poptism is a show I started. I was struggling a lot. I had been here. So basically, backstory on everything is I had moved here to work with my longtime artist coach. I had friends down here, work on songwriting, kind of all that stuff. Get my feet wet more living in a music culture.
yeah.
And my artist coach passed away 4 months after I got here, unexpectedly out of the blue. And I kind of lost my sense of community. Like
Mhm.
he was he kind of knew a lot of people in town. And I realized I want to do pop. And if I want to stay here, I have to find people that are doing what I'm doing. I was constantly being thrown in pop, country rounds and rounds that were blended. And I just would be like the ugly duckling in the group. And I'd be like, I don't fit here. And I'm like, I can't be the only one going through this. And we're all handed cards, we're all dealt cards, and we have to play them in our favor to win. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, this is the hand I'm dealt. How am I going to use this in my favor? And I'm like, if I'm running into this problem of like, I don't have this community, this platform for me to be where I feel like I can truly be my fullest potential, I'm like, somebody else out there in this town of millions must be feeling that too. So that's why I kind of came up with like Poptimism, which became around for me personally to meet more people, for me to
Mhm.
play my music and also bring in people that were feeling that same way. And other
Mhm.
people I'd met in rounds, other people I'd met around town that were kind of doing the same thing. And they're like, well, I don't want to be country pop. I don't want to have a flair of this Southern thing. And we're like, we have respect for it, but it's not what we're doing. And we also don't want to like affect the culture because it's
Mhm.
like I'm respecting the culture and I'm like, it's just something different where Music City has another form too, because a lot of pop music is written here.
Oh yeah, for sure. I literally about to bring that up. It's like as much as country music is synonymous with Nashville, I think just music in general is because, especially as I've spent a lot of time in Nashville and met a lot of Nashville musicians, they're not all country acts. It's like you got some hip hop acts, you got some rock act, like I
Yeah.
think just kind of finding that group and taking the initiative, like you'd mentioned, to kind of find your own group. Like, I think you're just helping cultivate a whole pop scene.
Yeah. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
kind of was the goal. To just kind of give a space for artists that were doing pop to be authentically themselves and also kind of like I had a hard time finding writers to write
Hmm.
with that were like this is what I do. I'm like, I respect the craft, but I'm like, there is a different formula to write a pop song than there is
Hmm.
any type of other song. And there's different formulas of how to do it. And I was running into the problem where people would come into a write and they'd be like, well, I write this and I write this. And I'm like, that's cool. And that's awesome. And I respect that. But I'd find some of that kind of weaseling its way into the what I was doing and I'm like that's not what I'm trying to do here and I'm like not trying to blend things. I'm not trying to mix stuff. I'm trying to do strictly this because this is what is authentic to me. And
Hmm.
finding that community and those people that were 100% sold on being a pop songwriter, being a pop 100% pure on that was a struggle for me. So I'm like, if I can find people that can network with each other, then that's a goal too. Like that's
Yes.
something. And
Yeah.
lucky enough, I've found people from that show. The coolest thing is watching, like, I put on a show and everybody's like a family when they leave. And they're like, oh,
Hmm.
I played in the show with you. And I'm like, ah, oh, that's cool. Like, I'll see people in my rounds playing and writing songs together. And that's the coolest thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I made that connection for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's kind of why I started. We started doing like a musician showcase, and we don't do it on any kind of consistent basis right now because we're trying to travel around and just kind of getting my entire team in one place is hard
Yeah.
enough because one of my guys is married with 5 kids. So
Oh my God.
it's like trying to get everybody on the same page isn't always easy. So I
Yeah.
take them when I can get them. So
Yeah, right now it's like I'm doing it quarterly just because I'm like I don't want it to be something that's like 100 like all the time. I want it to be something kind of anticipated and fun and people look forward to it and get excited. So I'm kind of doing it like it's like a privilege to play a little bit. So it's
yeah.
like everybody wants to work up, they want to better themselves to get there. And it's a round right now that's going to be morphing into like having different levels of like a round show. And then once you're done with the round show, you'll have like your band showcase
Mm.
and kind of just grow it. So it's like, it also gives the opportunity for a lot of artists. And I found a problem too when trying to book venues and make a living doing this and being a professional. You're
Hmm.
often asked, well, have you played any ticketed events?
Hmm.
So a lot of artists and that are songwriters that don't have bands and stuff run into the problem. Well, there's not a lot of ticketed writer rounds events. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, I can help be that person on the resume of being like, yeah, I did play a ticketed event. These people showed up for me, whatever. And it kind of fills that thing on their spot on their resume of like,
Yeah.
I did this. And they look a little bit more professional. So
Oh yeah, for
yeah.
sure, for sure. It's hard out there for a lot of musicians, and the fact that you're finding an avenue to help better the scene in general is really cool. So
Thank you. I mean, we're all here to help each other. I always say that. I mean, when you lift each other up, you rise together. And
mm,
I, I'm never like, it's not all for one. It's like you all got to go together. And
mm,
I'm like, if I'm having these problems, somebody else there struggling too with
right.
it. And I'm like, if I can find the way to fix it, why not share that? And
Yeah,
so that's the way everybody gets ahead.
100%, 100%. Now, is this something that you see yourself continuing, like as you go through your career and hopefully eventually move out to LA?
So I eventually, yeah, I hope to kind of continue it. I've talked about ways of how I want to grow it. I want to get actually I always feel like a lot of venues and stuff like to do have annual things and whatever. And I've thought about having different like Poptimism Nashville, Poptimism LA. I'm friends with someone that runs a showcase up in New York, and I'm like, I could do a division up there. So I could have them like in between cities.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like a national thing, possibly. So I could have like Poptimism NYC, Poptimism LA, Poptimism Nashville, Poptimism Miami, because I kind of know people in every area. And so
Mm-hmm.
I could like give them a branch of like, this is how I do things. You want to take it and advocate for this area, go for it. It's all branded the same.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a long-term thing I'm looking at of how to do it. And it would kind of then it's like it gives the opportunity nationwide, but then it also gives a cool opportunity potentially down the road. I think way big, but it's like you can play other shows in the country and be like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
played at this one, I played at these different places, and it just makes everybody look a little bit more professional and feel proud of themselves. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah,
It gives people in different, like, say, for Poptimism Nashville, if you've got an artist that's trying to break into New York or trying to break
yeah,
into Miami or wherever, and it's like, oh, well, we've got a Poptimism Miami show in 6 weeks, or,
yeah.
like whatever it is.
Yeah. That's
I'll
kind
reach out.
of
Yeah.
that's kind of one of my long-term like goals with it. I'm like, and I was thinking of that when I sat down. I think really big. You're gonna find that
Hmm.
out. Everybody knows that. I think big. I'm like, it's big or go home. Go big or go home.
Hmm.
But it's like that was one of my things. It's like you can help somebody who's once again trying to move into some other area because
Hmm.
it's just not fitting and be like, hey, if I get there, I have a community, I do have shows, I have a ways to play, get out. Even if I'm just playing this one show, I'll always have a home base and it's like just repetition. And so it's it's a long-term plan, but I'm hoping
Right.
to continue with it.
Right. And I think the fact that I see like your vision is probably why I've spent way more time on this than I thought I was going to. I literally threw out the question. I was like, oh, there's a whole bigger vision here. So let's keep
I
running with this.
always think big. That is one thing everybody should know. First off, I think big. I'm like, you got to aim high and you got to shoot high because you never know where it'll land.
Right, right, right. I feel like that's almost a t-shirt slogan right there. Holly Claw, I think bigger. So I don't know. I think there might be something there, but
Yeah, I want to do Poptimism t-shirts. I had some hats and stuff made up. I'm just like the branding stuff. It's not known enough yet.
yeah.
And I'm like, down the road, I'm like, who knows? It takes a while for people to catch on. It
Hmm.
takes a while. Who knows what it's going to turn into? It could end up being like a music festival. I don't know. You know,
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
like sometimes I'm like, am I sitting on like the next Bonnaroo? I don't know.
Right, right, right. I feel that. I really like the comic book style, at least from the logo that I see on the on your Instagram here. Like I really am digging like the comic book styling.
I wanted it to be different, and I just like it needs to be bright colors. And I feel like the backstory on like the name, like it being Poptimism, is sort of like optimism. And I'm like, I
Mhm.
want it to be something not too serious where it kind of gets like a side chuckle. Cause then
Right.
like be more optimistic about the music industry. It's
Right.
dark enough as it is. Like, let's shine a little bit of more like think big, do this, be more optimistic about the music industry versus like sinking down to reality sometimes. And it's like, in doing that, when people think on the better things come. I'm like,
Mhm.
you attract what you are. So I'm like, well, if you're thinking good things are going to come your way. So
100%.
that,
100% agreed.
that's my goal. I'm like, I want it to be a fun show, stress free, not something that is just stressful to anybody. A
Right.
little less serious.
100%. 100%. So what was it about pop music that originally drew you to it, or was it not always pop music that got you into
So
music?
yeah, so when I started, I graduated high school early. I had started playing guitar when I was about 10 years old. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I got older, but I'd write songs and stuff. I didn't know I was writing songs actually when I was doing it. I was just writing stuff to my guitar. To me, that wasn't songwriting.
Hmm.
And I had a guitar teacher at the time. I was in about fifth grade, and she was a songwriter. And so it kind of got that way. Um, and so long story short, I ended up recording an EP in Nashville in 2015. And I had a full band, didn't know what I was doing. Booked the full band. I had the studio guy help me. I got the album back, and it was an EP. Um, and it was actually in the country genre. So I was like, great. Okay, how am I going to make my money back that I just spent on this EP? And it's not exactly what I wanted.
Hmm.
And so I went and I sold CDs door to door enough to make my money back. I ended up winning a couple awards for it and this and that. And I got to New York from it. And I was in New York and I was sitting with my vocal coach and I'm like, this really isn't what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I knew I had songs. I didn't know what I wanted it to sound like. And so it kind of put me in that. And I'm like, well, I knew that that wasn't the sound I was going for. So I had to find different avenues. And she's like, I really think you're trying to do pop music, is what you're explaining to me, because I didn't understand genres. And I'm like, probably. And pop music to me was just lighter. It was more fun. There was more diversity to it. I felt like there was no borders essentially in doing anything. You could do kind of whatever you wanted, no rules.
Hmm.
And I liked that better. And I also found, because at that time I was playing a lot on acoustic, I didn't have a band because I was traveling from Maine and I was also only like 16. I'm like, I don't have a band. I don't have any of this. So I'd play songwriters nights and they're like, oh, she's a pop singer songwriter.
Hmm.
Um, and I could do stuff like that. I could have like a loop station. I could do whatever and make different sounds. And I'm like, oh, it's cool. I sound like a full band and this and that. And I ended up just being pop because pop could be acoustic guitar. It could be electric guitar with a backdrop. It could be an 808. It could be anything you wanted it to be.
Hmm.
Pop was simply what people are listening to. And to me, that could be anything. So it
Hmm.
opened the door for me versus any other genre. I felt closed in. So,
Nice. I love it. And I think that freedom that you're describing is why we're seeing so many crossovers right now. Like you'd mentioned that you didn't want to be like pop country or whatever. And so it's like, I think that freedom within the pop realm, because it's popular music. So it's,
yeah. It's like you go back through any time and you look at like Elton John essentially was pop of that
Mhm.
time, but it's technically rock.
Yeah.
But it's like it's more free flowing, and pop, like pure pop, has a distinct sound, but within
Hmm.
pop you're allowed to do flares of this, flares of that, and just be inspired by everything. And I felt
Hmm.
like there was less rules, and I don't like a lot of rules, so I'm
Hmm.
like, I can do whatever I want. And then I'm like, you look at some of those producers and stuff, they're making sounds and songs out of anything. I mean,
Hmm.
they're blowing on like paper towel tubes and whatever, and they're making it a
Right.
sound and whatever, and it's like the backdrop of a Justin Bieber song, and I'm like,
Hmm.
what? And it's
Right.
cool. So it's like it just felt more creative, more inventive, more innovative, and I've always been drawn to that. And then I just liked good songwriting. I think more than
Hmm.
anything, I liked good songwriting, and for me, pop music, learning to say more with less was a challenge.
Hmm.
And so it's always a puzzle, always a challenge, but yet there's no rules, and that's exciting.
Right, right, right. I 100% understand. Because I think a lot of people, when they hear the phrase pop music, they think of the boy bands of the late 90s and early 2000s, the
Yeah,
NSYNCs, Backstreet Boys, stuff like
yeah,
that. But going back to what you said, like Elton John was pop music. The
yeah.
Beatles were pop music, like especially really early on in their careers. Like there is no rules when it comes to pop music. So,
It's just what people are listening to, which is what is so crazy to think that we have all these genres, all these labels and everything.
mhm.
And literally at the end of the day, it's all whatever people are listening to is pop
Mhm.
music. And
Well,
typically pop music has a different production and
mhm.
it's lighter and more airy. And you find like those Hot 100 songs and all that. It's just songs that somehow evoke people to feel good.
Mhm.
Like that just is more fun to me than anything.
Right, 100% agreed. Yeah. I actually just had somebody on the podcast earlier today, and I had made the comment, and they had agreed with me, but behind closed doors to a degree that the only reason that the music industry has genres right now is to make sure that their award ceremonies make sense. Other than that, it's all pop music.
Yeah. I feel like lately I've noticed it trying to be more genreized again.
Mm-hmm.
Typically genres I've always found is like pop has no rules. Anything's there. There are distinct things in each one that makes it like, okay, there's a certain structure, there's a certain
Mm-hmm.
format that works for each. I'm finding country, because I live in Nashville, is going more to be genre specific with just the
Mm-hmm.
instrumentation they use.
Mm-hmm.
It basically sounds. I'm like, okay, if you want a pop song to be pop country, you just have to use these words, put it in
Mm-hmm.
this, and add have your track sound a little bit different, add a little
Yeah.
twang to it, and it's a country song. Or if you want to be a pop song, take that out, put it in a more conversational way of saying it, put different backdrop. I'm like, then it's a pop song.
Right.
And so it's basically when I look at genres, I'm like, what aesthetics do you want to wear? What outfit
Right.
do you want to get dressed
Right.
up in and wear and sing this song? And I'm like, if you want to wear a hat and cowboy boots, it's going to be a country song. If you want to kind of be more like everyday, whatever, and no rules and whatever, it's more of a pop song. I'm like, what outfit does this song wear? And that'll be
Mm-hmm.
kind of where it falls.
Okay. Yep.
And I'm watching that more.
100% agreed. 100% agreed. So where are you kind of at creatively? I know you got a new song dropping here in about a week, or if you're a YouTube follower, it may or
Yeah.
may not be dropping in like
Yeah.
27 minutes. But how? Actually, let's jump into the song a little bit before we move on to the future here. What's the name of the song? What can you tell us about it?
So this new song coming out is a song I wrote. It's called Me to You. I always like to try to and test new things. I had put out a song back at the end of last year called Single, Sexy, and Free. And this new song out I put out is a love song. And it was one I started for someone and finished for somebody else. And I kind of feel like life is kind of like that. It's like, we have a turn of we don't know where it's going. And I had started the song for somebody and I ended up stopping. And then I ended up finishing and picking it back up because I'm like, well, the story's similar in a different way, but the song is it still abides by
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But it's just like I started for somebody, finished it for somebody else. And so I'm like, I don't write a lot of love songs. And so I'm like, maybe I should throw that in the mix, considering I just put a song out about being single, sexy, and free. I'm like, that's what you should do. I'm like, that would be the most you thing to do is kind of put like a little hook in the a plot twist in the story. And so I kind of did this one next to follow it up because I'm like, it was a special thing. And it's also Valentine's Day coming up. And I'm like, that could be something cool. And I feel like, once again, I don't do a lot of love songs. And when I do, I'm like, they need to be done right and differently. I'm just not, I don't like to do everything the same. And so the last love song I did was like a summer song. This one's more like just out of the blue kind of song.
Yeah, for sure. And you said this is a straight up standalone single.
Yeah, so this one's just a plain single. I do have an EP coming out. Basically, through the time of working on the EP, I was kind of just writing these songs that I liked and they didn't fit anywhere. And so I run into that all the time. My biggest problem, and my producer even jokes with me this, my biggest problem is I always have too many songs to record. And so that's not a bad problem, but I am like, I'm addicted to being a songwriter. And so I always have way too many songs to choose from. And so I'm like, I want to do this EP, but I also want to do these songs and put these out. And everybody's always telling me, slow down, get a game plan here. How are we going to do this? And so that was kind of, these were to fill in the time while I was fine tuning an EP coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's, and because in an industry right now where it's like consistency is the key,
Yeah.
and getting stuff out there, sometimes you just have to throw out the random singles to kind of get you to the next project.
Yeah, that was kind of like, I have been doing singles and I was just doing singles for a long time because I feel like albums are just a harder sell lately. People want to just grow with you and you can grow with them fast. And then I also ran into last year, Um, I had put out a song, a couple songs actually. One was Rockstar and one was Work For It.
Hmm.
And they weren't done. The photo shoot, everything was done before I had the master of the song.
Hmm.
And this time around, I'm like, I don't want to have the look of this done until I have the masters on my computer because I had to work backwards. It came
Hmm.
out fine, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm literally working backwards and making this all kind of cohesive in a backward sense. Like we don't even know what it sounds like. We don't know we know what it looks like, but we don't know what it sounds like. We don't know the final everything. And so I'm like, this time, put on the brakes a little bit, and let's kind of fill in those spots. So I have a little bit more time, which is fine because I had written extra songs and I'm like, okay, I need to record them anyway.
For sure. It's when it comes to like choosing songs to record, are you very particular about what you actually record, or is it just like, do you specifically write songs to record them?
So I am I will write a lot of songs. I have written less songs the last couple of years only because I came to terms of it's quality over quantity.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, maybe I take the songs that I really like and just hone in a little bit more and make them absolutely exactly what I want. Instead of like going and writing more songs, how do I learn to fine tune these ones and then pick from those? So typically I'll write songs and I'll be like, is there any of them sticking in my head? Is there any of them that I'm still stuck on that still keep coming back to me? Is there any of them that I'm going back and replaying? And those ones I dive into a little bit more and I put on what I call my cut list. And I
Hmm.
have a long running list of songs of kind of like, okay, these are ones that I really feel strongly about. These are the ones potentially that I want to record. And then I kind of do a demo thing. I listen through them and we kind of pick from there. I also did have a while back, I partnered with a company called Sapphire Records, and they wanted me to do an EP. And that's when that list came in handy. I was like, I don't have any songs on my radar right now that I'm ready to record. And they're like, maybe you should do some follow-up songs. And I'm like, lucky enough, I have this cut sheet where I can just pick two out. So I ended up
Hmm.
recording a song called Queen of Complicated and Coke that I had written a couple of years before and never recorded because they didn't fit where I was. So they were
Hmm.
one off singles. And from there, I just kind of started doing one off singles because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm in a point where I'm ready to do more
Hmm.
in one look, more to encompass one chapter. Um, so I've always kind of written that way, never in the sense of like, I'm going to record this song as my next.
Yeah.
It's like, it might be something or the world may never hear it.
Right. Fair. And I mean, there's something to be said because, I talk to a lot of songwriters and musicians that write their own music and all that stuff. And they're like, sometimes you just got to get the song out to get it out of your head to make room for the next one,
Yeah.
and with no pure intention of actually doing anything with it. But
That's
sometimes you,
that's the way it is. It's like you have to let the water flow until it's clean again.
hmm.
And it's just, and you never know. I mean, sometimes I'll write a song, I'll be like, I hate this one. I absolutely hate this one. I'm like, I never am going to play it for somebody. And I'll put it on my laptop. And then people will be like, so what do you have? And that happens with one song I had called Coke. And I'm like, this song, nobody's going to like this song. Nobody's going to like this song, whatever. And I play it every single show I have because it's everybody's favorite. And
Hmm.
I'm like, nobody's going to go for this one. Like it's just not a good one. And that's
Yeah.
one of everybody remembers that one. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
so weird.
Right. You just had your Bon Jovi living on a prayer moment because
Yeah.
he said in an interview once that living on a prayer he didn't think was good enough to make his album, and it's like
Oh,
one of his most popular songs ever. So,
yeah. It's like that was kind of Coke was a big one. And then for some reason, I've had people come up and they'll sing like the bridge of one of my songs to me. I'm like, I know that song. And I'm like, why do I know? They're like, it's yours, stupid. And it doesn't click with me until I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that. Um,
fair.
it's just a weird thing, and for some reason, I'm always stuck on. I'm like, oh, I know this one, but it doesn't ring a bell.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
it,
funny.
it's it's a weird feeling, but it's also kind of cool because I'm like, oh, it resonates. But yeah, I have those weird things happen to me sometimes where I'm like, oh, I wrote that, cool.
Nice. I love it. I love it so much. So where are you kind of at right now creatively? Are you like in a more writing phase or are you just kind of focused on recording right now?
So I am in the middle of things. I am recording. I'm also shooting stuff for the new EP coming out,
Mhm.
also in between the release of a song. Um, I am kind of in the mix of everything. Writing, yes, I have plans for the summer that I need to finish up writing stuff for. That hopefully I also have a Christmas song I promised, so I've been working on that. Even though it's not even February, I'm like, I got to get on this because I'm not
Mhm.
time. So I'm like, January 1st hit, and I'm like, I got to write a Christmas song for this next year. So I'm always in the middle of everything,
Mhm.
which is a weird place to be, but kind of a great place to be.
Oh yeah. Like always moving, always evolving
hmm
is a good place to be.
Yeah,
So,
I feel like if I'm not doing that, then what am I doing?
right, right. And now, are you a full-time musician or do you have like a day job to?
So I do. So before streaming happened,
Mm,
I was full time. I do have a part time that I do now. Hoping to get back to full time, but it's like I have to do a part time too, just so I don't drive myself crazy in
fair.
music. I feel like sometimes people, if they do music all the time, they kind of lose touch with the world. Um,
Hmm.
so I do have a part time. I work in real estate also, so that's fun, and I get to learn an entirely different language. Um, but it's a different world right now. Streaming
Hmm.
is different. TikTok doesn't pay creatives like it used to. The influencer scene isn't the same as it used to be,
Hmm.
sadly. Um,
Is
it,
that kind of why you stopped doing the YouTube videos?
yeah. I mean, like, I still do some stuff. I'm hoping to get back to YouTube. Um, I'm not doing TikTok anymore.
Mm,
I ended up saying goodbye to that one because I'm like, it's not worth it. And
yeah.
I don't go on it. Um, and if you are on it, it's all like, buy this off the TikTok shop. And I'm like, if I'm getting, I always go with, I'll find the people in the places I go. I'm like,
Hmm.
and if I'm not going there, that's not my people.
Hmm.
So TikTok, I kind of am not doing anymore. I'm hoping to get back onto YouTube. Um, and then I think Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff too. I really like YouTube, but
Hmm.
I think for YouTube, it's just been time
Hmm.
time to do it because it's kind of people don't realize being artistically in music is very a lot and hard.
Yeah. Right. Right. I,
Overwhelming, and sometimes when you're steering the boat and doing everything on the boat, it gets to be a lot.
oh yeah, for sure. You know, it's like for me, Instagram, Facebook are relatively easy.
Mhm.
YouTube is the hardest one because not only do you have to be consistent, but you also have to appeal to the algorithms of like, oh, hey, this is what's going to catch it. And, you know, like I've just recently this week, I've made the concerted effort of like, okay, I'm going to do more than just throw my podcasts up there. Like, I'm going to actually like figure out a content strategy. And it's doing okay, but like still it's a grind. But yeah.
Yeah. I like make it's not a great decision I make on social media, but it is my decision. And I always feel like everybody tries to play in the algorithms. Everybody
Hmm.
tries to do that. And I'm like, if my what I'm doing is good enough or people like it enough, it's not going to matter when I post it.
Right.
Not going to matter. People are going to find it. I'm a believer in that of like divine timing. Like,
Hmm.
it might not be like because you can't live by an algorithm. At least I
Hmm.
can't. And so I've always people are like a lot of people tell me they post this many times of the week and this and that at this time, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I don't remember. I'm like,
Yeah.
I if something is meant for me, it will find me. If something is meant to be heard, it'll be heard. Other than that, I'm like, why push it? Like
Right.
everything happens in divine timing, and I'm like, well, if it's not doing these things for me, it's not that I'm not putting the effort in. I'm putting effort in elsewhere. It's just it's not the right time. And
Hmm.
so it's like everything you're meant to have, I'm always a firm believer will find you.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and that divine timing you mentioned is exactly how I found you. I was watching, you came up on the recommended feed in YouTube. You were celebrating your, was it 500 subscribers, I want to say, or something on your YouTube
Oh
channel?
yeah, probably.
Yeah, and that just kind of popped up into my feed because I was watching something else, and I was like, "Oh, who's this?" You know, whatever. And then I realized, like, "Oh, she's a musician." Like, and then that just kind of
See,
that
it works out. I always say that. I'm like, it's divine timing. Like, it's sometimes, for me at least, it's like it's more fun not to know. And it's like
hmm
you meet people that you never would have thought you'd meet. Or
hmm
it's even like times I've had where I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to meet this person or whatever. And they're doing something. And I'm like, I bump into them on the sidewalk. And I'm like, what?
what's going on here?
It's like, it's like stuff like that. It's sometimes the world and life paints a better picture than the one you are painting for you.
Mhm.
And so for me, especially living in Nashville, I'm like, wow. I'm like, that came out better than I thought it ever could. And so
hmm
sometimes it's nice when that happens. And I call that divine timing. I'm like, we can push and push and push, but I'm like, why push when you could just slide down the river and follow the
hmm
stream?
Oh yeah, and
Eventually you'll get where you're going.
oh yeah, it's so funny because I I'm starting to believe in that stuff a little bit more and more right now because during early part of the pandemic, there was a duo act that I'd been trying to get on the podcast, and I was trying to talk their manager and all that stuff, and it just never ended up working out. Well, my friend called me the other day because I'm being in Nashville here in a couple weeks for CRS, and she was like, "Hey, I'm playing the Bluebird. You want tickets? Like I have like a couple comp tickets. You want one? And just come hang out and see what the Bluebird's all about." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." One of the acts is this duo that I've been trying to get on the podcast for the last 5 years.
It's crazy.
Right?
It's crazy how the world works. That's like a similar thing that happened to me. One of my big songwriting heroes is Brett James. He's a country writer. He's also written a lot of pop songs and
Yeah.
stuff. And I've been his fan since I was like 12 years old. I'm 27 now. I had tried and tried to go to a show, just a show he'd played at. Never could get tickets, never worked out, didn't
Yeah.
ever work out. And I'm like, sometimes it's going to work out, it's going to be better. And I just have that thing of like, it's all for a reason. I'm like, I'll probably never meet him, whatever. It's just things happen the way they do. And I'm like, I always miss the show. I never could get tickets. I moved to Nashville for my birthday last year. I'm born in December. They had a special NSAI showcase show,
Mhm.
and he was on the roster.
Nice.
Oh, I'm like, I'm gonna try to get tickets and see if I can go. So I'm like, it's my birthday was the next week, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit at my computer and see if I can get tickets. 12 years I've been trying to go see the songwriter, never been able to see him. He doesn't play a lot of shows. I get there, I got two tickets. I got two tickets. It wasn't sold. The show was sold out, but I got like first off the bat two tickets, and I got first pick of the tickets. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, it's probably gonna be whatever. A lot of people there, and what ended up happening is I got to meet him. He got to shake my hand. I got to talk to him, and I
hmm
just got to be like a fangirl moment of it. Of like, I didn't think that this could happen this way, and it happened better than I painted it. Because I was like, I want to go to a show and see this guy play the songs I know. And instead, I got to go to a show to see this guy play these songs I know, talk to him. And he said, "You're a songwriter," and acknowledged me as being a songwriter in the
Nice.
community. And so I'm like, as a 12-year-old girl writing songs that really didn't know what she was doing at that point,
hmm
just wanted to go see a show. Ended up meeting her songwriting hero, shaking hands, and being recognized as a songwriter by a hero.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes it paints a better picture. And
hmm
so it's the same thing with that. It's
Yeah.
magic.
It makes it a more interesting story now because it's
Yeah.
like, you know, like this duo that I was talking about, like I just stopped trying because I tried 3 times and it was just like it didn't work out. And now it's like, wow, that's pretty funny. So it makes it for
Yeah.
a more entertaining story.
Yeah, it's funny stuff like that. I had for a long time, I worked with a guitar player when I was first starting out for a guy that I loved his music and whatever, and I didn't know that they worked together at the time.
hmm
And so it ended up connecting that way of like he played for one of my favorite artists. And
hmm
so it's like you never know how things work out. And I ended up we're still in touch and still in contact. And I'm like, it's always funny watching how things work out.
hmm
But somehow it's like if you want it bad enough, the universe will give it to you just in a different way than you thought.
Yeah,
Or
100%.
Or if you're like out and about, I remember that happened to me in New York City. Um, I'd be like, there was an act that I wanted to see and I never could get tickets and I bumped into them on the sidewalk and they talked to me. And I'm like, it sometimes happens differently. And instead of being the crazy girl in the crowd, I'm like, I'm their friend that they know their my name. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
just cool.
Yeah.
So like I always believe in that. For some reason, the universe has a better ending in mind.
Right. 100% agreed. 100% agreed. So as we're approaching the official release of your song, we'll go with YouTube because we're about 8 minutes from that release. What's kind of running through your mind right now as you're 8 minutes a week, however you want to kind of word it?
um, I feel like I'm never nervous putting out new music.
Mhm.
I'm never I usually forget that it's coming out until somebody reminds me, which is awful. But I've put out so much music over the years. It's like, oh, it's another release. It's like, you know, it doesn't. A lot of people get excited and stuff, and I'm like, oh, cool. This is one song coming out, and it's fun. And I'm like, I'm already thinking, how can I incorporate this live? What is this going to look like? And
Mhm.
I'm already like a million miles ahead of it. And in my mind, it's like, oh, it came out last year. I'm so behind. I'm like, and
Right.
it's not even out yet. So that's kind of like where I'm at. And then being in the middle of other things, it's like, it sometimes I forget that I'm like, oh yeah, there's stuff coming out and people have heard it for the first time. And I'm like, I've heard it a million times. I'm already over it.
Right. 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 I get the thought. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, it's out. Cool.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, happens. But then at the other end of the spectrum, it's like, wait, do I need to reconsider my thoughts? Because the fact that I'm not nervous about this song or this project or this whatever,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, to me, that makes me a little nervous, like not
Yeah.
being nervous about something. So,
I think for me, I just am like, it's part of the hustle.
hmm
Like, well, I've prepped for this and I know it's coming. And when it comes out, I'm like, oh, cool, it's out. And then I'll listen to it in the like when it comes out and I'll have it on my
hmm
phone, I'll play it in my car, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I wish I was her. And then I'm like, because she's so cool online and this and that. And then I'm like, yeah, oh yeah. I'm driving, home in my car, and I'm like, I'm just a normal person.
right, right, right,
It's like it's that thought process of it doesn't sink in until it's there, and then I'm like, oh my God, it's out in the world. People have heard it. It takes me a while to catch on. It's the same thing when you play a show. I played a show 2 weeks ago, I think, and it
hmm
was a band gig, and we headlined the Breaking Sound Spirit Airlines show. And people are like, it was a great show. And it didn't click with me until like a week afterwards what I had done. That I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. And then I saw it like played back on the internet. I'm like, oh yeah,
hmm
I did that. And
yeah,
so it takes me a minute. Sometimes
yeah.
I'm jet lagged from stuff.
Fair, fair, fair. So, funny story about that, the Breaking Sound show. My dad used to work for Spirit Airlines as a pilot.
Okay.
And he told me about that. Like, this was like right around the time that I was just starting Live and Amplified, like 2016, 2017, somewhere in that ballpark. And he was telling me about this thing that Spirit Airlines was trying to do to make themselves more hip or, like whatever, for whatever reason they were trying to do it. And he showed me the first one and he's like, you need to get involved with this and you need to figure out how to get in and like make videos or something. And I was like, okay. And so I tried to reach out to anybody, and my dad just, for whatever reason, wasn't really helping me try to get connected with anybody. And I'm like, and then I just stopped paying attention because it's like, okay, I tried, but nobody was really like responding to me. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I played that one. I think it was the 16th of January. It was kind of
Mhm.
a little bit last minute. Like, I don't even know, but they reached out and they're like, "What do you want to play?" And this and that. I'm like, "Sure." It was holiday time. Sure, I'll play
Mhm.
it. And I wasn't really aware of it. And it was the Breaking Sound Miles for Miles Spirit Airlines show. And
Yep.
I'm like, "Whoa, this is kind of a big deal." And so I'm prepping it with my band, and I'm like, "Geez, this is actually a bigger deal than I thought."
hmm
It was fun. We all had a blast. I feel like every time I'm doing a showcase, it's for an airline.
hmm
Ironically, I played in Florida and I was JetBlue sponsored. Then this one was Spirit Airlines. And I'm like, Delta and Alaskan got to get on it now. I'm like,
Right.
every airline, or Hawaiian. I didn't really go for Hawaiian Airlines. Have me out in like Maui or something. Like, I feel like every time I do a big show though, it's by an airline, which is funny.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a ton of fun. It's a great little
Nice.
organization. We got to headline that one, and yeah.
Where'd you play, or where was the show at, or the,
Oh,
yeah.
it was kind of funny. Breaking Sound Los Angeles somehow got my name, and they ended up booking shows here in Nashville because I guess they're opening a new location. I don't know if it was through the venue, through the Poptimism show.
Mm.
I'm not really sure exactly how it went down. But we played at Wedge Pizza and Pub,
Oh,
and we didn't
nice.
play like when I got there. I'm like, oh, we're playing downstairs in the venue. Well, they have this cool little like back upper space, kind of like a club space
Hmm.
in the back of the venue, and we got to play up there, and it was just super vibey and cool. They had great sound. We all had a blast. Like my band had a great time, and it once again it went better than I thought it could have been.
Nice.
We had it was kind of thrown last minute together for us because we just had a snowstorm here in Nashville, and I'm like, oh God, we're like short on rehearsals here. This is
Right.
gonna be a train wreck. And we I think had the best show we possibly could have. We didn't know what we were walking into. We weren't aware of how big the show was until we got there, and we just had a blast. So it was better than I thought it could have been. So
Nice. 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 So like right as of now, how often are you playing? Like, I know you said your like Poptimism shows are quarterly, but how, as like you as a musician, how long are you, or how often are you playing?
So I've kind of toned it down a little bit. When I was first in Nashville, I was playing a lot of rounds. I was playing out a lot more than I am now. And once again, it goes back to the aspect of
Hmm.
quality over quantity and making sure the ones that I play count. And so I'll play usually, I say once a month, out and about. I'm doing more band gigs than ever. So just because it's like I always intended my music to be heard as a full band. And so I have been booking those for us. Um, and we did the Breaking Sound one. We have a couple more shows coming up. We're doing the Poptimism show. I think we just got booked at one at Flamingo Club or Flamingo something
Hmm.
in March. I don't as of right now have any shows in February, and we're doubling up in March just because I'm going to be out of town in February finishing up some recording, and I'm going to be out in
Nice.
LA. So I'm like,
Nice.
I don't know if I'm playing any shows out there yet. Haven't really booked any. Probably not as much. It's going to be a quick trip for me and kind of full. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Like when you're traveling for music, everyone's like, "Oh, you're going on vacation." I'm like, it's totally opposite of a
Right.
vacation. It's like,
Right.
long days and
Hmm.
long flights and long nights.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, playing out, I have it posted on my website a lot of where I am or on Bands in Town, I think is the website I use to kind of promote that stuff. But yeah, it's less, but making sure those shows count.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Usually once a month I'll play out.
Nice. That's really cool. I dig it.
Yeah.
And then just because I don't want to keep you here too much longer, if anybody wants to check out your music, all that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
That is on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. I'm not doing TikTok anymore. Instagram, all the things. I'm on all the things. I'm really working on amping up the YouTube this year and getting back on that, just because I meet people. I mean,
Mhm.
it's connection. I am really just everywhere. Find me
Nice.
on my website. Everything's linked there. I try to update that as much as I can because I'm like, that's my home base. It has my name on it.
Yeah. Right. I feel that. I feel that. But once again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will catch y'all later. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Live and Amplified's Indie Fusion podcast. If you'd like to support anything Live and Amplified does, please follow us on all of our social media platforms at Live, the letter N, Amplified. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, any of them, all of them, at Live, the letter N, Amplified. And if you would like to buy any official Live and Amplified merch, you can do so at our merch shop. Link in the description below. Once again, thank you all. Have a great day.